morning. Welcome to another exciting adventure at Bobby's Hobby House. We've got some great guests here tonight. We're going to show you some giant scale radio control model airplane things because this weekend is the giant radio control scale fly-in. Rich Herman's the contest director. And Rich, what's happening this weekend?
Well, you were close on the radio control giant scale. It's a IMAA fun fly, what we call it.
Not a contest.
It's not a contest. It's just a get-together of giant-sized airplanes. They can be scaled as these are, or just any design of airplane, as long as it's a giant size.
Okay, we've got you and Ed Cairns here tonight with his brand new scale P-51 Mustang that is a huge, huge airplane. But I understand we're not going to see either of these fly this weekend.
No, the P-51, Ed hasn't had a chance to test fly it yet. So
for safety's sake,
we have to test fly this thing about 6 times before we usually allow it to fly in amongst spectators.
Well, not really in amongst the spectators.
Well, not amongst them, but in front of them. Let's put it that way.
Ed, you've just wrapped this up. How much time do you have?
I've got about 6 months it took to build it. And there's still some things that are a little wet on there right now because
I didn't notice that when
it hasn't test flown yet. And we were trying to get it done before the fly-in this weekend. But Rush makes a big mess.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to take our time before
you will be displaying the model.
It'll be out there, yes.
Okay. Folks, a lot of times you see these things on television and you just can't get the feel for it until you see it in person. So this Saturday you want to come out to Bronson Field, also known as Blue Angel Recreation Center. That's out on Highway 98 West. You'll want to see this. In order to get in the gate, you'll be invited to donate $1.50, is that right?
Yeah, it belongs to the Navy, naturally. So any active duty personnel, retired personnel, is $1. Civilian types are $1.50 per carload. So
what better buy can you?
We invite you all out to come see our little toys that we.
No, don't say toys.
I shouldn't say little toys. They're big ones. The wives always call them toys.
Well, I know they do, and the real hard spot is to recognize that what you're dealing with here. This started out, and I know some of you have seen on these shows we've done before. We've brought kits in to show you that how this begins as a box full of balsa wood lumber. And with 6 months of work, Ed turned that box of balsa wood lumber into an incredible piece of flying machine here. Ed, I'm anxious to see this fly. That's going to be really exciting. You've got a monster engine in this too. What kind of power is that?
It's a 3 horsepower engine. It's called a Super Tiger 3000. And it may be struggling a little bit here with the weight of this airplane.
How much does it weigh?
The airplane weighs 24.5 pounds. And the reason, one of the reasons is because it has a complete retractable gear system which operates on air pressure, compressed air. Each side of the wing contains 2 cylinders which is pressurized up to 100 pounds. They activate the landing gear up and down. The tail wheel also goes up and down on it. So the additional weight in there will create a little bit of a extra load for the engine, but it is designed to fly at that weight.
Yeah, Ed, you've got a little unusual perspective in this because you've been a full-scale Air Force pilot.
Well, I was a fighter pilot for 28 years with the Air Force. And,
how do you relate the real airplanes to the model airplanes? What are the similarities? What are the differences?
The similarity is that if you're behind the airplane, everything is all right. It's just like you're sitting in the cockpit. A left bank is a left bank, or a right bank is a right bank. But when you turn it around and it starts coming towards you, then things are backwards. And so there the similarity is gone. So it is, of course, being a pilot does help a little bit in giving you some feel for it, but it is a complete different.
There are a lot of jokes made in the radio control community about give it to a real pilot and you got 20 seconds before it's a kid. And with this neighborhood full of real pilots that we have, sometimes the guys have a little trouble believing that. But like you say, a real pilot will never fly an airplane toward himself.
That's correct.
We had a long-standing joke with Ed teaching him how to fly these things here. I don't think he still likes to make a right-hand turn.
Air Force pilots always turn left, and of course, being in Pensacola with the people that I associate with over here, they're all Navy.
So what do they turn, right?
I'm not sure which way the Navy goes, but I do catch quite a bit of flack just being an Air Force guy over here.
But you had the decency to come in and build a model of an F-4U. That was last year?
Yes.
A beautiful, beautiful Navy airplane that was built and flown by this former Air Force pilot. And,
I think he did that out of self-defense.
Yeah, that was to gain some respect in the community. You know. Rich, your airplane, this is new also, isn't it?
Fairly new. I got about 6 or 7 flights on it. It's a Ace kit that I built, you know, from a bunch of lumber, like you say.
And you've got a pretty good size engine in this too.
Yeah, this is a what we call a Zenoa G62. In fact, the airplane really is overpowered slightly. But that was the engine I had, so that's the engine I was going to put in it. But it flies well. It's a very aerobatic type airplane, and it does have a lot of power in it, you know.
Yeah, when you say this is the engine you had, that brings up a point. A lot of people say, well, what if I crash it or something like that? And I think the thing there is that engines and radios and things survive a lot of those crashes. Is this an airplane that's been, or an engine that's been flown before?
I've had it in another airplane.
But you didn't crash it?
But I never had it.
Okay.
Have never crashed it.
After a while, you just get tired of it and you want to go to something bigger, faster?
Well, it kind of depends. You know, you might build an airplane and then fly it for a year and then want to go to something else. I've got one airplane at home that I've had for going on 8 years now, and I have more fun with that airplane. You're probably familiar with that Stealth Hog. I have more fun with that airplane than any airplane I've ever built.
Of course, being in the hobby business, we've generally believed that variety is the spice.
Right, you're in the business to sell another airplane.
You should always. Well, every winter, you know, when the weather trashes out, or other than summertime for that matter, when it's too hot to go outside, you go back in where it's air conditioned, and this is the kind of stuff you do. People do this in their houses. Does it take a lot of space or special tools or any of that kind of stuff?
Not really. It depends on the size of the airplane that you build. You know, most of these airplanes can be built in a fairly small area or workbench.
A fairly small workbench. How big is this one?
A large kitchen.
A large kitchen?
Or a large kitchen table. You know.
Oh, kitchen table. You didn't do this in the kitchen, did you?
No. My wife donated the funds for me a hobby room up in the attic.
To get you out of the kitchen.
Okay.
So,
when I got this one.
Yeah, that's a really neat project. How many people do you anticipate coming out to this event this weekend?
I'll tell you what, I'm afraid to really say. I was up in Alabama to a fly-in this last weekend, and I'll bet you I heard from 10 or 12 guys that they're going to be here this weekend in Pensacola. I got a call from a fellow in New Orleans. He says about a dozen are coming from New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
Usually we get 30 or 40 from around the general area: Mobile, Fort Walton Beach, Crestview, Panama City, Montgomery. We usually have a pretty good turnout.
And the criteria is 80-inch wingspan.
The criteria is 80-inch wingspan for a monoplane, 60-inch for a biplane,
okay,
or true quarter scale.
Okay. So that covers what you're going to be seeing out there this weekend, folks, is a lot of big radio control airplanes.
Big airplanes. Just about. There's some smaller ones out there, but they still qualify under the general rules that we fly by.
But you mentioned that it's not a competition.
No, we just go out there just to kind of, might as well say it's an ego trip. We just like to show our airplanes off and fly them, and just have a good old time.
That's it.
You know, there's
in Pensacola, this is such a strong aviation community that anything to do with aviation seems to be really popular in this neighborhood. These guys are doing things, the building and construction. I don't know, one of the things that I found when I built smaller airplanes was you had always taken for granted things like center of gravity and angle of incidence, and these are things that you learn. These are not beginning airplanes.
No, they're sure not.
Okay, let me pick up the phone. Hi, you're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Yeah, I go to a lot of air shows and stuff.
Sure.
We had one not too long ago over at NAS, and well, I was just admiring the guy in the red shirt. I was admiring his plane, and I was just wondering where exactly this was at. You said.
Okay, we'll pass that along at least a couple more times before we're finished tonight. Appreciate the call.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, do it again.
Okay. The fly-in will be at Bronson Field, which is now called the Blue Angel Recreation Center. It's on Highway 98 West, approximately a mile before you get to the Lillian Bridge. If you hit the Lillian Bridge, you've gone too far.
Yeah, that's Alabama.
But, we'll start about 9 o'clock in the morning and continue on until practically dark.
And the long-range weather looks pretty good.
Looks pretty good. They say there's a chance of showers, but I really, our head weather guru says we're going to have good weather. And getting back to the number of people that we assume are going to be there, I would just kind of take a fat guess, seeing that this is our 3rd annual fly-in, that probably we're going to have maybe 60 airplanes, 60 pilots and airplanes there. So we'll have plenty of flying.
And I've heard rumors about the world-famous chef or chefs.
Lord, we got 2 chefs out there that'll cook some sausage sandwiches that will just melt in your mouth.
So this is classic kibasi, as the word I heard last night.
Kibasi, and we're also having Italian sandwiches, sausage sandwiches this year. We're going to try them out.
Okay, so we can cover the food grounds there
And we've got soft drinks for anybody who wants a soft drink. We don't
sausage and airplanes, that probably goes together, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure, why not?
I don't know if that's official flight food or not.
But we'll have plenty of flying out there. I'm hoping to, depending on how many people show up, have either 4 flight stations or 5 flight stations.
Okay.
Which means 4 or 5 in the air all the time.
There's not a set pattern that these guys need to fly once they go out?
Not really, no. I think everybody just does their own thing.
Okay,
we try to set a sort of a pattern to keep from having any kind of a midair. But
yeah, that would be devastating.
We just kind of fly a racetrack pattern.
Okay.
But there's a lot of guys, that do aerobatics, so you can only do aerobatics in one place. So.
Okay, and you're pretty famous for flying low and upside down.
Don't say that now.
Oh.
There's a sand dune out there.
There's a sand dune out of Bronson Field that did me in.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So.
We're not going out to see airplanes crash, are we?
No, definitely not. No,
that could cause tears and such.
We build these to fly, and it's like anything else. Everybody says they're toys. Well, they're not toys. They're miniature aircraft. And you'd be surprised how many models that these engineers build before they actually build the full-scale airplane.
That's true. I remember when the space shuttle was being launched from the back of the 737 or 747. They were concerned that there might be some problem clearing the vertical stabilizer. So a bunch of the engineers got together who happened to be radio control flyers, and they built models of the 747 and the space shuttle. And they found that separation was not a problem at all, that they never once had a problem reaching into the vertical stab.
It was coming back in for a landing.
It was coming back in for the landing, yeah. They said dropping that thing down as vertical as it was with no more wingspan, that greasing it onto the ground was a pretty good trick. But then when you go back and look at most of the actual aircraft, historically speaking, they began as models first. So we have real precedence here. I have noticed also in a lot of the model aviation magazines, they say, why waste all the time building the model that you can't get in and enjoy it flying? So you've got the experimental aircraft people who aren't much bigger than this in some cases. In fact, a lot of times they're using some of the same materials that you're using here in the model aviation. Have you had the urge to go build a real airplane?
Not me.
No.
I don't know if I could stand that at the expense of that.
Okay.
But some of these ultralights, they're, like you say, they use the same materials that we use. The Voyager that went around the world on one tank of gas was built practically with the same material.
Same monocoat kind of covering and that sort of thing?
Well, they use the composite materials, but what we call hot stuff, the glue, the instant glue, they must have used 50 gallons of that stuff on that Voyager.
That's amazing to think about that much of that instant glue. For people who may have been away for a while, the instant glue is one of the big changes in the hobby. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back in just a minute. We'll continue conversation with these guys that have the giant radio-controlled scale airplanes. Be right back. We're back, and we're talking about giant scale radio control model airplanes. My two guests tonight have great examples here of terrific giant scale model airplanes. We want to talk about this one more time. Let's hit the Bronson Field
the fly-in
event this Saturday. It's only this Saturday, guys. Don't come out Sunday looking for it, or you'll miss the whole deal.
We're going to start about 9 o'clock, the flying portion of it anyhow. But it's our third annual IMAA fly-in for giant scale airplanes, or giant size airplanes. Start at 9 o'clock, and we'll quit maybe about 5 or 6 whenever the sun goes down. And
you mentioned IMAA. Let's talk. What is that?
International Miniature Aircraft Association. It's probably about 9,500 strong.
Pretty good.
And we have chapters actually all over the world. There's chapters in Australia.
They won't be coming.
England? No. Well, I hope not. But we do get quite a few people from around the general area anyhow. Within about 400 or 500 miles.
What would be a good time? We mentioned earlier these are not trainers. At what level would you begin to build a giant scale airplane?
I would say after you learn how to fly.
Ed, this is your third or fourth airplane?
This is my fourth airplane.
Fourth airplane. And you started with a trainer.
Started with a trainer, a high wing trainer, 40 size.
And an instructor.
And anybody that was instructing me at the time that dared to, really, they'd get me airborne and say, "You got it," and then they'd walk off the runway and leave me out there. And
sweating bullets.
No, we had good training. Then one of the airplanes I built right after that was the J-3 Cub, and I put it into an Army decor.
How diplomatic. You've covered everybody but the Marines, and they'll call in.
And I've still got that one in one piece. I have a set of floats for it also, so I fly it off the water as well as off the land. And then I built the Corsair, and now this one, and this is the real giant. It's the biggest one I've tackled so far.
But don't you find generally the big ones are somewhat easier to fly?
I think they are. They fly more like a real airplane does. Depending on the speed of the airplane, they're slower reaction. They don't flit around the sky like these little ones.
What kind of speed are we talking about here?
Oh, I would say any place from 60 to the high-powered ones. You could probably get up to 100, 100 miles an hour.
That's pretty quick. Let me pick up the phone. Hi, you're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Hey, Jerry?
Yes.
Ask Rich how in the world did he get Ken Parker in that cockpit? It looks just like it.
Okay. Appreciate that call.
Well,
Okay.
I know Ken is watching this
Ken's
program.
giving up smoking, so the cigar wouldn't fit him. But
I had a hard time finding that pilot to fit the airplane right, and that is actually Jake the Snake, the professional wrestler.
Okay.
With a little modifications.
Pretty close to Ken. Ken's hair's not quite that color.
Not quite that color or that thick.
Or that thick. Yeah. Well, a little Ken abuse. Ken, for those of you who may not know him, Ken Parker's the fellow who works behind the radio control counter up at Bobby's Hobby House. He's the guy that instigates a lot of these things, gets a lot of things started, and he gets a lot of encouragement in that. But he gives good advice. This is one of the things you can get from the guy behind the counter that you can't get in some other ways. So we're going to promote that a lot. Ed, do you have some more words you'd like to put on us with giant scale
Well, I'd like
airplanes?
to mention the pilot, or the absence of a pilot in there. I'm still trying to get the leather helmet with the goggles, and I've got a lifelike size of Mr. Dean.
All right.
That's gonna go.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
The
want to get
original
him-
Wright brother.
That's right.
Okay. Well, training a pilot even for these is kind of, you can't just go throw a guy in there. You've got to give him a little.
That's right. No, I've asked the designer of this model some particulars about flying it, and he's given me some very good instructions with it, and they're very similar to flying a real airplane. The actual lift and all is with the wing, not as much as the power is concerned, but he said be sure and fly it with the wing making the airplane go up and down. A lot of the airplanes, the models, the smaller ones you can have, a lot depends on the power, and it'll really pull it around the sky and forgive you a lot.
Sure.
But this one, he said, be particular careful about the flying it as a real airplane.
Yeah, that's the way this one is here. I've got enough power in this, I could completely stall the wings out and still haul it back up just from sheer power.
Yeah.
Okay, let me pick up the phone again. Hi, you're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Yeah, so there going to be any inducted fan aircraft there?
Okay, I'm going to put that right on Rich. Thanks for calling.
The only way there'll be any ducted fan airplanes out there at this fly-in is if they are 80-inch wingspan.
This is from the contest director. It's got to be 80-inch wingspan. Some of you may not be aware, Rich has a little heartburn with ducted fans. Anyway.
No.
If they're not 80 inches, they've got to be 80
As long as they're 80 inches, I'll allow.
The same was mentioned of helicopters. If you got an 80-inch wingspan helicopter, you can bring that too. Is that right?
I've never seen an 80-inch wingspan helicopter.
We shouldn't have to worry
So
about
we shouldn't
that.
have to worry about it.
Okay. How are we doing? We got anything left?
Well,
Let's say one more time where we are.
Bronson Field, Blue Angel Recreation Center, 9 o'clock, Saturday. This Saturday, April 25th.
Be there.
9 to, we'll say, 5 or 6 o'clock. We'll have lots of sausage sandwiches, drinks, a lot of flying, and a lot of get-together.
Okay, let me pick up this last line here. Hi, you're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
The airplanes that you have on display right there, are they balsa wood skeleton airplanes?
That's correct, isn't it? balsa wood skeletons?
balsa wood built.
Right. And some plywood, too, and some of these big.
There's some plywood in there, and there's some fiberglass. You know, usually the cowling is made out of fiberglass, but the main structures are all balsa wood and light, what we call light ply and plywood.
Mm-hmm. I have one question for you, however. Can you get these larger models aircraft in relatively simple to assemble fiberglass kits, or are they available only in balsa wood or in these wood and fiber kits?
You can get them in fiberglass. Some of the manufacturers, in fact, a lot of them are going to fiberglass. Say the fuselage, the whole fuselage is fiberglass. Now, naturally, there has to be bulkheads in the fuselage for the strength, which is plywood.
Yes.
And the wing is foam covered with balsa wood.
All right, I appreciate the call. We need to wrap it up here and move on to the next thing. This will be my last show, and on behalf of myself and Sandy, who's appeared with me frequently, I'd like to tell you thanks for the participation that we've had with you, and we're looking forward to keeping up with everybody else. In the meantime, if you have questions about model hobbies, arts, or crafts, you want to give the folks a call up at Bobby's Hobby House. Stay tuned now. We've got NAS Live coming on right after this next break.